Hello televiewers, and welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour with me, Lasha Kingsley in Douala, Cameroon. On today's edition of the program, we are looking at France Africa Summit, which took place recently in Paris, France. And the question we are asking this evening is, can Africa's economy be revived through the France Africa Summit? And on the second part of the program, we shall revisit the sad incident which happened in Bahrain, in the Middle East, where a Cameroonian had to kill two of his brothers, and at the end of the day taking his own life. Those who are the package, or those are the topics that we shall be looking at this evening or tonight on this edition of Prime Hour, with our crack team of panelists who are already seated with us in the studio. And I will begin with Dr. Nick Ngwaya, who is a social entrepreneur. It's always a pleasure having Dr. Nick with us. Good evening, Dr. Nick.
Oh, thank you very much. It's actually a pleasure to be here, and the two topics that we are discussing tonight are very exciting.
Apostle Ambe Valentine is equally with us. He's a man of God and also a relationship coach. Good evening, Apostle Ambe Valentine. Welcome to the program.
Good evening, Cameroonians and viewers of Prime Hour. It's a privilege to be here to educate Cameroonians, Africa, and the world at large. Thank you for having me on site.
Avec nous aussi, c'est un militant de PCRN de Cabral, Libye. We are with Pascal Tunge. Pascal Tunge, bonsoir et bienvenue une fois de plus.
Bonsoir, M. Kingsley. Bonsoir, mes co-panélistes. Et je salue les nombreux téléspectateurs du Prime Media.
How is the PCRN political party doing?
Le PCRN se porte très bien. Et actuellement, nous sommes en pleine campagne de redynamisation de nos organes de base, et en même temps que vous connaissez, notre ancrage sur le terrain nous porte justement à poursuivre avec notre entreprise d'inscription massive des citoyens sur les listes électorales actuellement.
Okay, let's begin. I begin with you, Dr. Nick Ngwaya. Yesterday, Emmanuel Macron said that Africa's key asset is its young people, and they are the most dynamic in the world, but support to the sector has never been a priority. This was during the opening of the France Africa Summit, which ended today in Paris, France.
Yes, thanks. I think he was right on that score, and I think the blame for the problems of the youth will also be addressed to him. And if we look back, there was a video that that came out. I mean, it's been circulating. It's a video of President Sarkozy having speaking, I think, with President Paul Biya, or I don't know whether it's President Paul Biya that was commenting on what President Sarkozy has said. But President Sarkozy drew the attention of Africans to who they are, and he was saying essentially that we live through seasons. We just rotate with seasons, but we never plan for the future. We never plan for 5 years, 10 years, and so on. And you cannot blame the African youths today or the African governments and so on, because the people who colonize us, so to speak, you know, in 1949 or what, I can't remember those dates. Apostle Ambe, he has a better list of dates than me. But when the French came and signed those their accords with us, one of the things that they put in was that we should never, ever modify our educational system until we take permission from them. And yet they knew what kind of educational system was good enough for Africans or for our children to also be emerge and be creative and useful. They hid that education for us and gave us some bullshit, which is causing us problems today. The good thing about the bullshit is that everybody is part of the shit, in the sense that when you see youth now migrating through the desert, though they are suffering, they are overcrowding France now and crowding Europe, and the people are crying. So I think it's time for us, Africans and Europeans, Americans and whoever, to sit down and really find out what the problems are and begin to solve them in a win-win manner. Because whatever they did 60 years ago was a win-loss arrangement. We have come to a point of a win-win, and if we don't do the win-win, everybody will be a loser.
Apostle Ambe Valentine, how does the summit aimed at helping Africans solve their problem or overcome the turmoils they're going through?
Yeah, Lasha, another definition for insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a change in your life. This France African Summit did not start today. What is so funny is that France as a nation is summoning a continent. How do you put it on a pedestal? How do you balance it on a scale that a single country in Europe is summoning a continent? How many nations have flown to go and see Macron alone? What's the economy of France? And what's the economy of those 5 nations in Africa that France wants to head? That's the question. What's the per capita income? What's the gross domestic product? What's the gross national product of those 5 countries or 6 countries as compared to France? Have you ever seen in mathematics the improper fraction? Have you ever seen where 16 is trying to carry 20? These nations are nations well established with resources. More resources than France. Good working population than France.
But they don't have the technology to be able to exploit these resources you are talking about.
That is what you know, that we do not have the technology. We have the technology, but there are policies in our system that will not allow the technology to operate. I've seen young men who have attempted making bikes in Africa. I've seen others who have made aeroplanes. They have tried attempting making airplanes. The problem is, like he said, the system has not been supported. There is no better brain in Europe than Africa. There's no better skill in Europe than Africa. We have not decided to exploit ours like they do theirs. So when we talk about intelligence or the technologies, it looks like the technology idea came from God and landed only in Europe, and God refused to allow it go to other continents. It's everywhere. The problem is the sector of that particular skill has not been invested in Africa. Number 2, like I said, France cannot sit in Europe and is summoning almost 6 to 7 African countries.
There's a former colonial master.
Former colonial master, my foot. Thank God you said former. The word former means it used to be. It's not today. That's what we are talking about here. And I am glad with the statement he made. He said that particular sector, which is the engine, the youth of Africa, they have not been invested. When the Cameroonian who created drone here in this Cameroon,
and he went further to say, that we are correcting the paradox now with the launch of an alliance for African entrepreneurs. That's what he went for that to say.
Yeah, we're correcting the alliance with the part of the alliance with the African entrepreneur. African entrepreneurship is needed because why? The big nations like South Korea, Brazil, Indonesia, Malaysia, and the rest were like Cameroon. In 1960, Cameroon used to send aid to Indonesia and Malaysia. How did they emerge? Because they invested in the area of technology and agriculture. What have we done so far in investing in this particular area? The worst of it is that Africa has a population of 1.2 billion persons, and almost 70% of that population are youths. When a Cameroonian created a drone here, who invested in that drone to expand it? We are still importing drone when somebody has created a drone here.
But did Macron stop any of you from investing in the young man that created a drone?
Macron did not stop any of us. The policies put in place, Dr. Nick said the 1958 Colonial Pact. He said it here. Are we arguing it? 1958 Colonial Pact has restricted us from carrying out certain things in our continent.
Okay, I'll
Because
come
we must buy from them.
come back to you, Apostle Ambe Valentine. Let's go to you, Pascal Tonge. The summit just ended, and they equally discussed about the COVID-19 vaccine, and France says she's going to mobilize partners alongside the International Monetary Fund to ensure that the Africa gets the necessary funds for vaccine probably to be produced in Africa.
You know, Lasha for me, it's a non-profit initiative for Africa, because lorsqu'on voit l'histoire de la coopération France-Afrique, on se rend compte que la coopération France-Afrique n'a jamais été une coopération avantageuse pour notre continent. Actuellement, nous sommes en pleine pandémie Covid-19, et lorsqu'on regarde le contre-coup de cette pandémie, de cette crise sur le continent africain, on se demande s'il n'y a pas quelque chose à faire. Mais maintenant, est-ce que le sommet France-Afrique sur les économies africaines, soi-disant, vient résoudre les problèmes actuels de l'Afrique? Là, il y a lieu de s'interroger, parce que lorsqu'on observe, lorsqu'on jette un regard sur les résolutions qui ont été prises à la suite de ce sommet, on se rend compte que ce sont des vieilles solutions, ce sont les mêmes solutions qui sont plaquées, pour dire en anglais, the same solutions which have been taken on this summit. Donc, on ne peut pas dire que ce sont des solutions innovantes. Maintenant, nous sommes là dans une démarche de coopération. Je pense que les pays africains qui se sont retrouvés là-bas, en France, les chefs d'État africains et les dirigeants qui se sont retrouvés en France là-bas, y allaient dans une démarche de coopération. Le tout, de notre point de vue, c'est de toujours voir quel est l'intérêt de la nation et où se trouvent les enjeux, quels sont les enjeux avec lesquels il faut composer. Je pense que c'est autour de cela que va se structurer notre...
But it was not only African countries. We equally have renowned international
oui, il y a eu des
NGOs like the
des organisations
Foundation.
internationales et
Yes.
autres. Oui. Bon, mais vous savez, c'est le multilatéralisme en fait. Seulement on s'interroge sur est-ce que c'est opportun, est-ce que c'est avantageux pour nous. Je pense que d'emblée, je dirais non, parce qu'il s'agit là d'une énième initiative justement pour perpétuer toujours cette logique néocoloniale qui habite toujours, qui entache toujours la coopération franco-africaine.
Dr. Nick, Macron said yesterday that the summit agreed to work towards getting rich nations to reallocate over 100 billion US dollars in international monetary funds for special drawing rights, monetary reserve to African states by October. How huge? Yeah, that is a huge sum of money.
That's right. And,
Coming without strings. So
it's a great thing that he puts this money at our disposal. It's a great thing. Thank you, Macron. But it doesn't sound as that's face value. You've got to you have to be intelligent enough to know what is beyond that, and to ask yourself a couple of questions. The problem of Africa now. Watch my lips. It's very important when you have an entrepreneurial mind, you think differently. And when you go to meet Macron as a civil servant or with an employee mind, he can mess you up big time and you will not be aware. And for an entrepreneur, when you are thinking as an entrepreneur, yes, somebody is going to give you money. Great, it's nice. But you need to step back again and ask yourself the question, what would you be doing with the money? Which is something that we have never really asked. And we have never really known how to use money in Cameroon or in many African countries. So the money comes and a couple of civil servants, they just take a knife and split this money up and put it in their pockets and go home. And so eternally, we are always in debt, taking on more and more debt for our children to pay from no investments, from nothing. And then we are extracting all the natural resources and they're going, cutting the trees and they're going. The biggest problem of these African countries is not money. The biggest problem of these African countries, if a Macron wants to help African countries, he has already started with a good thing. He says that there must be this win-win cooperation, so to speak. I don't know whether he put in win-win, but let's be careful. Each time you are in a tangle with somebody, you have to define the rules of the game. And we are going to be in a tangle with someone who is technologically more advanced than us. And therefore the question is, at what level would you and I be in this tangle business? Because you see, like some of the clauses that we signed last time, there was something on the custom something.
Yes, European Union,
Yeah,
where
yeah.
goods have to leave
That is
European
right.
Union and
That
enter
was-
Cameroon
that was the-
duty-free.
That was the most stupid thing that anybody could have done.
And it's still in place, very much
yes,
in place.
and they nailed Cameroon, and many other African countries as best as they could. You open up your borders to someone who is technologically far advanced than you are. He dumps all his stuff on your market, and yet you are unable to produce a banana and take to his market, and you think that you are trading. It's not fair trade. So it's one of those things that we've got to be very careful about. And we have had a very good example of stolen COVID money in Cameroon, and you can imagine how COVID is killing, and money is made available to see how the population can be protected. Then people just walk away with the money, and it has happened with many other projects. It doesn't matter how much money comes in, half or three quarters of it just disappears into private pockets and so on. And therefore, our problems in Africa now is not really the money. Our problems in Africa is to step back a little bit and then get ourselves to speed, put people in place who are responsible, who know what it takes to move a country from A to B, and put them in place. We need to put in place what do we call that despot thing again, Reverend Ambe? enlightened
despots.
Yeah, enlightened, benevolent
Despots.
despots with people around them who know what to do. If let's say all African countries were filled with the Kagames, with the Mangofulis and the Ghanaian president and so on, then we'll be comfortable. But we have not yet got there, and we need to push our governments to become more responsible.
Why is it taking us so long to get there, Dr. Nick?
It's taking us so long to get there, for one thing, that our university system and school systems were really very rotten, and they're still very rotten, and therefore we spend a lot of time going to school and just reading these books and just reading, spending hours and hours reciting things, and yet we don't learn the most important things. We don't understand problems. We don't understand problems, and we cannot solve problems. It's very basic. It boils down to that. We have not learned the skills of understanding problems and solving them. And like we are saying a moment ago, though Apostle Abme was trying to massage our egos to say that we have technology, our technology is still very primitive. It's true that a few children have been trying to make some planes that can fly, but that cannot carry you anywhere. But what he was saying was that we should make our university systems to develop those planes so that they can effectively fly, and that's what we are talking about. As long as, watch my lips, we continue to import rice, fish,
I even hear the Chinese are already making gari now.
Yes, they're making gari, fish, and then we are importing toothpicks. It shows how primitive we are, and it doesn't matter how much money we are given, that money will go down into the waste bin. So we need to change our educational system. And I think in a moment you will give me give me an opportunity to say what should be in that educational system. But if Macron wants to help Africa, don't give Africa money. Do something first before you give African money. Please take off those your clauses and liberate our school system. Tell our leaders that actually you deceive them with a school system that is not good, and that it was time for them to wake up from sleep and copy what is being done in South Korea, Singapore, and Malaysia. Once we do that and lay a good foundation and bring up our youth, they'll be able to take up the relay baton.
Is a political will there in Africa for the things that you are saying to sail through? Because apparently there is no political will, as many are saying.
You cannot have political will when you don't understand what is going on. I mean, many of the guys are just so you put somebody as a minister, he doesn't even know why he's a minister. He thinks that he's a minister to go dancing in the village, and then you've seen some stupid thing. Grounds. There used to be some stupid thing that ministers used to do. Something they'll go and put a banner, dance with people, and that phrase has disappeared, right?
Homecoming. Is it homecoming?
Homecoming or some stupid thing like that. I mean, that thing has disappeared. Thank God. The president. In fact, people don't really know. President Biya is one of the most frustrated guys you can have.
So why do you say so?
He puts people there to work, and they go dancing around. They don't even know what they're doing, and they want to go see them. They're all locked up in prison, and more will be joining them.
Apostle Ambe Valentine, reading through the final declaration of the summit. Let me quote the final declaration. We cannot afford leaving the African economies behind. That's what the final declaration states. How genuine is this portion of the final declaration?
I would say that is being penny wise and pound foolish. Macron cannot say we cannot allow the economy of Africa to fail. Meanwhile, they have set up a financial system that already crumbles the economy. If they are sincere, they should stop the usage of franc CFA in Africa. Colonies of French Africa, that is CFA. That is hypocrisy at its peak. You don't explain to others you want the economy of Africa to boom when the currency of Africa is not liberated. Until Africans have their own currency.
But just some few countries in the CEMAC sub-region now. Nigeria is independent. Nigeria has got nothing to do with France and other African countries. You are talking about the CEMAC countries.
No, it's not just France has 14. I'm talking about specifically to Macron.
Yes.
Macron, the France CFA controls 14 countries in Africa, with Comoros Island that has added 15 countries. 15 countries in 55 countries using the France CFA is already a deficiency.
Why are the others not doing well?
Because they are not former colonies of French.
That's what I'm asking. Why are the others not doing well? Those that are not under Macron, the so-called franc CFA.
Those are not under the CFA.
The CFA. Why are they not doing well as well?
You cannot classify all African countries the same. If the African countries that are using CFA are worse or worse, then the ones who are not using it are worse. They don't have the same situation. You cannot compare Kenya with Cameroon. 10 million Kenyan cedis is 38 million francs CFA. Have you gone to Nairobi? A portion in Nairobi can occupy Douala and Cameroon when it comes to beauty. How much does Rwanda have to be up Kigali? I'm talking about countries that do not even have the capacity. A country like Eritrea, that you see the Eritrea Nakata, one Nakata is 18 francs CFA. Angolan Kwanza, one Kwanza from Angola in Cameroon here is 29 francs CFA. You go, Kenya has shillings. One Kenyan shilling is 6 francs CFA. Egyptian pound, one Egyptian is 35 francs CFA. Which country are you going to, when you talk about economic system, a country that does not have rule over its own money, that country is going nowhere. That's the first thing. No matter how we try to bring technology, we bring agriculture, we bring science and this, once the exchange of those products in the market do not have a good back financial zone, it's wastage. If you produce a phone in Cameroon for 2,000 francs, you want to sell it in a place like Kenya, the price will drop. That is because of the exchange. That is exactly what happened to America and China before the COVID-19 breakout. So when we are talking about money, whether we develop technology as Dr. Nick is talking, or we develop agriculture, or we start planting rice, if that rice is taken here and sold to a country where the exchange rate is low, we will still go on a deficit. That's the truth.
But Macron said recently, I don't know if it is last year, that African countries or the CEMAC countries that are using the France CFA, they are free to make their decision whether leaving or staying.
Well, you must understand diplomacy. You must, recently, what happened to Churchill opened the eye. We are not giving analysis based on a shallow perspective. We are giving analysis based on a detailed perspective. When Alassane Ouattara woke up and said that he has grown out of age and he has to hand power to somebody else, I told somebody that Ouattara will come back to take over power because why? The person that he's trying to hand power to is a vegetable, Amadi Gon Coulibaly, who had gone through a heart surgery. He was about to die. And then suddenly Coulibaly dies, he comes back. With all qualified, strong, able-bodied people in Cote d'Ivoire, he didn't see anybody competent enough to take over office. That's diplomacy. France will never stand publicly and say they're exploiting Africa. France does not have any well or a mine of gold, but they have the third deposit of gold, reserve of gold in the world. Where do they extract gold from? So when we are talking about France saying that they want the interests of capital, they should go to action and get the job done. So that making flamboyant statements and propagandas in the atmosphere. We know of political propaganda. People can blow discussions in the air. That same France was talking about taking care of Africa and borrowing Sudan $1.5 billion in this same summit. Sudanese president, the person in the transition, Abdullah Hamdok, is somebody who has worked in the United Nations Economic Reserve in Africa. When they kicked Omar el-Bashir, Sudan had a challenge of
and Sudan's debt was cancelled during the summit. The France cancelled Sudan's.
Oh, they are borrowing. They are borrowing Sudan another money. Oh, go and check the report. Sudan had been borrowed $1.5 billion in the course of the summit. Should we die as debtors? That's the problem I'm asking. But which nation did Magufuli borrow money from to advance Tanzania?
You should blame your own people.
That's what I'm talking. That's where the problem is coming from.
Blame your people.
So we are talking. I'm saying that if Macron is making a statement that you should not allow the economy of Africa to dwindle, then let them take practical steps to make sure it is not going down. Because the machineries put in place and the structures that are set up cannot even allow some African president to breathe. Okay,
Apostle Ambe, I'll be coming back to you. I keep talking about COVID-19, and Macron equally said during the meeting that he sets out to vaccinate over 40% of the African population.
Oui, mais Lacha, vous savez, le problème avec la question de la vaccination, surtout en ces temps de Covid, réside justement dans l'origine de ces vaccins. Lorsqu'on examine les débats, on voit que, on se souvient que le président Tshisekedi, président en exercice de l'Union africaine et président de la RDC, a dit qu'en réalité le problème vient de la provenance de ces vaccins. On ne sait pas exactement si ces vaccins sont de bonne qualité ou pas. Et puis, le problème aussi vient du fait que ces vaccins sont fabriqués à l'extérieur. Et pourquoi ne pas trouver des voies et moyens pour pouvoir les produire en Afrique? Je pense que dans le logos, on va dire ça comme ça, dans le discours du président Macron, c'était que justement, il fallait justement que cette initiative soit explorée et qu'il faille que les vaccins soient produits aussi en Afrique. Et c'est d'ailleurs ce qui, selon lui, expliquait ce financement de 650 milliards qu'il fallait débloquer du côté du FMI. Je pense que ce sont des arguments qui, pour la France, pour le président français, ont peut-être un sens, mais pour nous, Africains, nous ne trouvons vraiment pas l'opportunité d'une telle initiative, parce que justement notre problème n'est pas l'argent comme l'a dit le docteur Nick, mais c'est justement de pouvoir trouver en nous-mêmes Africains les voies et moyens pour pouvoir nous développer, pour pouvoir créer une industrie forte, pour pouvoir nous libérer d'abord de cette prison dans laquelle nous nous trouvons, c'est-à-dire le franc CFA. Il faudrait trouver un moyen alternatif de pouvoir frapper peut-être nous-mêmes notre monnaie en tenant l'exemple des pays, la plupart des pays anglophones. Prenons par exemple, lorsqu'on compare les pays anciennement colonisés par la France, à l'occurrence les 15 pays anciennement colonisés par la France en Afrique et ceux anciennement colonisés par la Grande-Bretagne, on se rend compte que le niveau de développement n'est pas le même. Bien sûr, tous les pays de tradition historique anglophone en Afrique ne sont pas développés vraiment au sens satisfaisant du terme, mais quand même le ratio à comparer avec les pays francophones et les pays anglophones, on voit qu'il y a un gap. Voilà, mais ça dénote en fait de quoi? Ça remonte, on peut imputer ça à l'histoire, c'est-à-dire au système d'administration appliqué soit par la France de son côté, soit par l'Angleterre ou la Grande-Bretagne de son côté. Je pense que la question de la vaccination ici, pour y revenir, est une question qui ne peut trouver son sens que dans une logique d'endogénéisation, c'est-à-dire les solutions endogènes doivent pouvoir être trouvées d'abord chez nous et ne doivent pas nous être imposées par l'extérieur qu'on ne contrôle pas toujours. Je pense que c'est dans cette perspective qu'il faut entrevoir ce débat.
Dr. Nick, let me come back to you this time around about the production of vaccines for the African continent, and the participant, it was agreed that the African continent should be able to massively produce their own vaccine via technology transfer and lifting of barriers to intellectual property. That's what was agreed.
That's right. That's right. I think.
How feasible is that?
Yeah, it's feasible. It's an easy thing to do. It's an easy thing to do. It's not because we are blacks that we are stupid. No.
But we've had initiatives like that of the Madagascar president, even Samuel Kleda in Cameroon that has not.
Those are not vaccines. Okay. We are talking about vaccines here. I mean, those are other forms of treatment, but we are talking of vaccines here, which is a preventive measure. I won't go into the details. You have to make a distinction between preventive measure by immunization and then taking of drugs either for curative reasons or just to prevent or something. Those are two different things. So whatever Bishop Kleda is doing and whatever is being done in Madagascar they are not vaccines. Those are two different things. Vaccines is very high tech stuff, but I would like to tell the nations that, you know, Cameroon, for instance, produces vaccines for animals. There is an old technology for producing vaccines, and I think some of the COVID vaccines are made like the Sino vaccine. They are made using that old technology. Okay, and if all these vaccines had been made using the old technology, people would not be so resistant to taking it as we see now. It is this other new technology that they are using the messenger RNA to produce, like for the Pfizer vaccine, that's frightening a little bit because it looks like it tinkers a little bit with the genetic makeup of people. And because there have been so many conspiracy theories around the COVID disease and whether it's a natural thing or it's man-made disease, it's meant to reduce population, it's meant to hurt people, old people. So there are a lot of these things that are frightening people. But otherwise, if you have, let's just suppose that COVID-19 is a natural disease, then the best thing that can happen would be that Africa should also come up with laboratories, let's say in the 4 corners of Africa, to massively produce vaccine, not using the messenger RNA technology, but using the old technology, so we are sure that we are not being hurt.
Apostle Ambe Valentine, you did mention that Africa is not financially independent. Are you like saying if a common currency is brought up by these African states, they'll be able to, emerge strongly, to be able to, for their economies to boom if should they come up with a common currency?
Yes, I stand with that 100%. You see, America is strong because America is a continent, just like Africa. How do you explain that a country like Benin, a country like Cameroon, will begin to go to broke deal with a country like China? China is almost like a continent. China is 1.5 billion. That's Africa's population, not even up to that. Africa is 1.3 billion. Europe has a common currency. America has a common currency.
But not all the European countries are part of the common
except from Switzerland. Apart from Switzerland, I think 2 other countries. Britain and Switzerland that are not using that.
Yes.
Most of the population using by the euro. And that's what has shifted the euro to 655, which is on a battle now with the dollars. Now, if you look at what is happening right now in Africa, we have a serious challenge with currency issue. Let me really analyze this issue of if we have a common currency, it's going to help us.
Yes.
The exchange rate of any country financially determines the value of its products. That's the reason why you can buy this phone in America for $5. You come to Cameroon, you will not buy it for $5. You have $5 will be at least 2,500 francs. That's their 5 francs has entered into our thousands because of the exchange rate. You discover we are limited because we take much to buy what is little. That's some kind of inflation.
And cheating.
And cheating on our part. Now, if we have a common currency, we are going now to bargain at the level of the same rate. That's the reason there has been a war over the echo in the whole of West Africa. France is behind the echo, America is behind the echo. There's a serious battle going on right now to make sure that the echo falls within the Eurozone. America wants the echo to fall within the dollar zone. Because when the exchange comes towards a direction, you have benefits to make. That's why I say if we have a single currency, that's the agenda 2063 of the AU is that they should come up with a common currency, a common passport, and then they should break all these barriers called borders. Africa Continental Free Trade Area.
How do we achieve this? We've seen just with the free movement of goods and persons within this Sema sub-region.
Yeah.
Very difficult. You can't go to Equatorial Guinea. But meanwhile, on paper and what they said,
that's what I'm telling you, that
people can move freely.
They told us that we are in CEMAC zone, and we even have a purported CEMAC passport.
And even
I have flown to some of the CEMAC countries. When you reach at the border, you have to still stamp a visa.
Pay 50,000
francs. A
francs.
country that you have called, you are in a union. You talk about the East African Community, the EAC. Before you leave Tanzania to go to Uganda, you will stamp a visa to enter. What's the meaning of that? They say there is ECOWAS in West Africa.
Just with that, we are failing already. How do we come about a common currency?
It's to tell you that the wishes of the people is bad somewhere. That's why I say when you hear people make statements publicly, most of those statements are propaganda. If they say they have given us CEMAC, the so-called CEMAC, what is the definition of CEMAC?
Economic Monetary Community of Central African States.
Central African States. What limits us from walking to Gabon without any border? But if you go there to Bitam, at the entrance of Gabon, there's a barrier there on road, on air. When you fly, you land, you have to pay a visa to enter. It tells you that the CEMAC is mouth. We have EAC, East African Community, is mouth.
Is it still France that is behind such kind of behavior?
Imperialism is not just a mission of an individual, a particular nation. Imperialism is the responsibility of several European nations that once had colonies in Africa. Portugal is still alive and well in Guinea-Bissau. It's still alive and well in Angola. It's still alive and well in Quebec. France is still alive and well in the 14 countries added to Comoros Island right now. Britain is still alive and well in Nigeria. It's still alive and well in Kenya. It's still alive and well in Uganda. They still have influence. Zimbabwe, they still have influence in all those countries in South Africa. That's the reason why we keep up proposing things in Africa, we never accomplish them. How do you explain that we are in CEMAC? That's a simple example. We are in CEMAC. Do you know that the 14 France CFA, 15 countries using France CFA, cannot be compared? The France CFA used by 15 countries in Africa cannot still compare the Botswana Lula. One France CFA and one Botswana Lula is almost about 9 France CFA. A country whose currency is bigger than 15 countries. We are sick. Angola Kwanza is higher than all the 15 France CFA.
You're looking for, what about Nigeria? Just next door.
Okay, we are just good. I shouldn't say it. Eritrea that just came out of a war. One Eritrea Nakata is 18 France CFA. Eritrea. Lesotho, the same thing. So if we want to go and analyze, you discover that we who are even numerous in the France CFA bloc, our currency was supposed to be even higher than most of the countries. But single countries. Moroccan dirham is 156 francs. One Moroccan dirham, 156 francs. One Tunisian dinar is 59 francs CFA. And then talk less of Ghana cedi, which is 60 francs. So what are we talking here? When 15 countries in Africa are using the France CFA, and then he is telling us that oh God.
Apostle, so how do we achieve this? I keep asking you this.
Yes, how do we achieve this? It's simple. It's very, very simple to achieve this. Simple. Let us drop from our high horses, our arrogance and our pride. Europe started using euro. It's not because they stop from being nations. France is still a nation. Germany is still a nation. Poland is still a nation. Croatia is still a nation. Why are they using euro? They understood very well that if they come under a common currency, it will give them a weight in the market. So let Cameroon remain Cameroon. See, they are afraid that if they become Africa United, Cameroon president will not become president anymore. Let us remain president. Let us go now and agree. Because arrogance is that I don't want to be a governor, then somebody rules me. We don't want United Africa anymore. Let's have a united currency.
You must agree with me that when you see somebody dancing, there's somebody playing a drum somewhere.
Very certain.
There's a person playing the drum in this case.
How do you explain that West Africa comes out with an initiative of ECO? There are 8 former French colonies in West Africa. That is with Guinea-Bissau, 9, because Guinea-Bissau was colonized by the Portuguese under Amilcar Cabral. And then you have now 5 other countries. That is Sierra Leone, Gambia, Nigeria, Ghana. They won ECO since 2003. Then France comes from nowhere through Alassane Ouattara under WAEMU, West African Economic and Monetary Union, to declare ECO a Eurozone currency when the other countries have not given their consent. Is to tell you that when you see a bird dancing by the roadside, there is somebody playing the drum in the bush. I've given you who's playing the drum. Is France. I've given you who's playing the drum in the parable.
Okay.
I've given you the
this message probably is for you. There is a good evening, Lasha and panelists in the studio. Africa's economy can only be revived when we change our mentalities, educational system and good laws so as to ensure a convenient economy for a better future. That's Mutale Ferdinand writing from Yaoundé, Dr. Ni.
Yes, Mutale, you are right. What should we do? Like I was saying, you see, I'm a medical doctor and I'm a surgeon, but I had to leave my medical books and so on and read economics and understand what it means. You know, I went and bought O-level books in economics to read and understand the principles, read and understand entrepreneurship, read and understand leadership, and read and understand how to create and make things work. It's very, very important that you have all this package. Then travel around the world to see how things work. Read the right books, watch the right your YouTubes, and all of us in Cameroon must do this. You know, if you just sit with your little thing that you went and read in the university and think that you're going to succeed with it, you're not going to go very far. No, you're not. And to tell you that the kind of education, again, that we've been having in Cameroon and most African countries is not the right education that gets us to where we have to be. Therefore, I'm just saying that all of us, including our ministers and our president, our prime ministers, our generals, our governors, and everybody, we have to understand what others understand in developed countries. We are very far off track, and once we once we understand that, then we'll craft our educational system to be able to support our youths, to be able, so that by the time they're getting mature, they have this thing flowing through their veins. And it is the youths of this country who have been tweaked like that are going to save the nation. But the current understanding in the nation now cannot save this nation. We need what I usually call cross-pollination, cross-fertilization, but borrow the mentalities of people in Singapore, in South Korea, in Malaysia, and bring that here and strive with our own mindset, and then work differently, have a different political system. Then we will survive. If we continue with what we are doing, even if we are given 100 years, we will still die.
100 years will still die.
We'll die. Because sorry, why do you die? Listen, all this what I've been saying, there is this thing called DIY. Do it yourself. It's a principle. Africa must get to the point where she does it herself. For Africa to do it herself, it is not the African continent. It is the people in the continent. It is the youth in the continent that must learn to catch up with the youth in South Korea. When I say do it yourself, the youth must also be able to build a cell phone. The youth must also be able to do this, do that, build a plane like Apostle Ambe was saying. So the youths come up with something like those drones and so on. Come together, build them. That is how others do it. We have to get to that point where we support each other, we work with each other, we don't fight each other, we join hands together, either in Cameroon or Cameroonian youth joining with Nigerian youth to do things. Because when you see a car produced in Europe or in America, sometimes the parts are coming from this other nation, that one, and you put them together. That is what globalization is all about, and we must rise to the point where we can jointly do that. But if we are still at this our primitive level, with primitive mindset, egos, and empty pride, studying the wrong things and so on, not being able to collaborate with others, we will die.
Well, Dr. Ni, you may want to agree with me that you cannot live as an island. We will still need these countries that most of us are accusing of being behind the troubles that we have in Africa.
That's right. It's very important. See, when you say that, you bring me to a point where we should need to look at those three terms again: dependence, independence, and interdependence. In fact, watch my lips, there is no independent country in the world. It doesn't exist. There is no independent country. You can talk of independence in terms of, let's say, political systems. America got her independence from Britain on this day. Cameroon got her independence in 1960. Nigeria in 1960 or whatever. You are only saying that they signed this paper with whoever was watching over them to say you are mature now. It's your birth. It's the birthday of the nation. It's just like any other child that is born in the house. The child has a birthday. I have a birthday, you have a birthday. But that child has to grow and mature and become productive. The child has to grow, learn the tricks, learn the techniques, mature and become productive. The problems of Africa are that we have refused to grow, learn the tricks and mature. So now the other countries that had but either for good reasons or bad reasons, those countries are there, and we still have to continue to interact. That's interdependence. But unfortunately, they are trying to tangle with us at many levels. But our ability to tangle is not there because we have failed to grow. It's very important. So when Macron is saying that we need to change the paradigms and the dynamics, what he's eventually saying, and which should actually happen, is that we have to grow. We have to grow our act. That human development index has to come up. We have to grow our act. If we don't grow our act, nothing will happen. They will continue to mess us up. Not that they are messing. Sometimes, you are trying to help somebody, but the person is so weak that you cannot lift him up. You see, okay, they also travel and come here. They will like to land on nice, beautiful airports, sleep in clean hotels, drive around on nice roads. But you think that they are happy to come here and drive in these our dead roads because they are colonizers? No, they would want to come and drive on good roads. So technically, they want us to grow. They want our youths to stay in Africa, not come over there and be flooding their streets. So technically, really, they sincerely want us to grow, and it's left for us to grow, and we should not keep on crying and crying and crying. While we are asking them to correct a couple of things, just like Apostle Lambo was saying, we should grow our act. We should come up to speed. The problem with us is that we are not coming up to speed, and we like this blame game.
Okay, Pascal, let me ask you this question in the prelude to what Pastor Ambe said, that Africa needs to be economically independent, financially independent. How do we achieve this independence, this financial independence?
Vous savez, l'indépendance financière a un trait avec la productivité. Si nous ne pouvons pas axer notre politique économique sur la productivité, nous ne pouvons pas entamer la moindre procédure d'indépendance financière. Je pense que c'est là le débat, c'est là tout le débat de la monnaie en Afrique francophone. Je pense que la question du franc CFA est porteuse de beaucoup de controverses. D'aucuns disent que, ou alors observent que le franc CFA est une monnaie qui est soutenable, parce que quand même nous avons 15 pays, les pays de la CEDEAO, les pays de la CEMAC, qui utilisent une même monnaie, donc ils peuvent créer une économie intégrée, les uns dans le cadre de la CEDEAO, les autres dans le cadre de la CEMAC, et que c'est une monnaie qui a une parité fixe avec l'euro, donc elle peut être soutenable. Seulement le problème se situe, et c'est là le problème d'autres observateurs qui trouvent que justement au niveau de la balance de paiement, ça ne nous avantage pas. Je pense que se libérer du franc CFA ou de cette monnaie franc CFA qui ne nous avantage pas à l'observation, à l'évidence, tout cela ressort, comment dire, dépend d'abord de nous-mêmes. Il faudrait que nous puissions axer notre économie sur la productivité.
How do we produce? When you produce, you are not able to sell. The dumping goods are coming, broken. People go to Europe, they load containers with mattresses that children have urinated upon,
oui,
and all those kind of stuff they bring in, and what we produce here we cannot sell because of those kind of stuff coming into the country.
We cannot sell how? We can begin to sell in our country.
At the end of the day, those companies producing, they end up not selling anything, and they have to, shut their doors.
We have to develop a local.
How do you develop it? Because it goes back now to the political will I was talking about, that the political will is not there for some African leaders to develop their economies.
Bien sûr, il n'y a pas une réelle volonté de développer la productivité. Je reviens encore sur le terme productivité. Je mets quoi dans le terme productivité? Nous avons une économie qui, soi-disant, est basée sur l'agriculture, l'extraction des ressources minières.
How many young people go to the farms?
Bon, disons, voilà.
Very soon I'll be asking Dr. Nick that question.
Non, nous sommes dans un cadre sous-régional où, tout de même si le Cameroun n'est pas l'un des pays agricoles les plus en vue, on peut quand même, essayons d'abord de voir dans notre cadre sous-régional. N'essayons pas d'abord de voir au niveau global où il y a des pays qui sont beaucoup plus sur le plan de l'agriculture, du point de vue de l'agriculture, plus développés que nous. Voyons d'abord l'influence que nous pouvons avoir dans la sous-région. Dans la sous-région, quand même, le Cameroun jouit d'une certaine influence agricole. Les produits agricoles du Cameroun sont exportés un peu partout dans la CEMAC, et même parfois, et même jusqu'à le reste de la CEAC, Angola, RDC et autres. Bon, maintenant, est-ce que la volonté politique, est-ce qu'il y a une réelle volonté politique de développer, de capitaliser ce potentiel agricole, industriel, minier, et même démographique, pour pouvoir, n'est-ce pas, inverser la courbe de la productivité. Parce que le problème de nos pays, c'est qu'on veut bien changer de monnaie. Il faut bien changer de monnaie. Comme le révérend le disait, il faut bien que la monnaie soit indépendante. Il faut que nos pays puissent battre eux-mêmes leur monnaie. Mais maintenant, tout cela dépend de la productivité. Lorsque vous regardez les pays comme le Ghana, ce ne sont pas des pays qui importent tout. Vous regardez des pays comme l'Afrique du Sud, ce ne sont pas des pays qui importent tout. Le Nigeria à côté. Non. Mais nous, on observe que nous, en Afrique francophone, nous importons presque tout, même jusqu'au cure-dent. Donc, mais pourtant, il y a là de quoi pouvoir créer une économie et une industrie locale. Parce que si c'est pour chuter, si on n'arrive pas à développer, à produire, à transformer nos propres ressources, comment allons-nous chercher à soutenir une monnaie? Voilà.
Okay.
Donc c'est ça.
Televiewers, if you are just joining us, you are watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime Television live from our headquarters at Fengudon here in the nation's economic capital, Douala. And tonight we are looking at the Africa Summit, which ended today in Paris, France, where some African head of states and renowned international non-governmental organization met in France to chart way forward of developing the African economy. And let me take some few messages before we continue with the discussions, and very soon we'll be looking at our second topic on the program this evening. And this question is addressed to Apostle Ambe Valentine. The viewer is saying congratulations to you, and he's still saying again that he wants you to be appointed minister of Pentecostal churches in Cameroon, as well as that of education, while Dr. Nick, the minister of public health. And he is still saying that he doesn't know why Apostle Ambe is not speaking the truth this evening. Are you afraid of the police? That's what the viewer is saying from Yaoundé. Are you afraid of the police this evening?
What have I not said? The viewers always have something to say.
Okay, let's move on to our second topic this evening. Before that, let's take a short break. We'll be right back after this. You are watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime Television with me, Lasha Kingsley in Douala, Cameroon. And tonight we just are done with our first topic, which had to do with the Africa Summit, which ended in France, Paris, France today, and the resolutions of the meeting. The summit has agreed to assist Africa overcome the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic that has shrunk the Africa's economy, and also assist some of these African countries to be able to acquire vaccines and help the population to come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. We are moving to our second topic for the day, which has to do with the Cameroonian in Bahrain that who arrived a few days and had to kill two of his brothers, and at the end of the day taking his own life. The question we are asking this evening is, what is happening to these Cameroonians that have had to, or they have to be killing themselves or their brothers whenever they are out there? And sometimes most of them are not told the truth about what is out there. Some of them have been deceived to come over with fake employment visas and job opportunities, which of course whenever they get there, they don't find a job opportunity to be what was initially proposed proposed to them. That's our second topic for today, the unclear circumstances surrounding the death of the Cameroonian and 2 others in the Kingdom of Bahrain. Apostle Ambe Valentine, you've traveled to many countries around the world, and you've seen how life is abroad. And after some time, we've had this upsurge in the number of Cameroonians that are killing themselves and their brothers out there. What is actually happening from your own reading?
Lasha, is very, very sad getting this kind of bad information coming from Bahrain. May the souls of the departed rest in peace. And I think this thing is born out of ignorance. Because if we ascertain the reason why these children travel to some of these countries, I think it's because they don't actually know what is inside of them and what is within this country. When a man begins to relocate to another country, he must have gotten some better information around the place. And I want to ask that the people who are transporting you people into those countries, if at all the country actually had what they needed, would they be doing the documents to transfer? Because the funny thing is that the people who are asking others to come and live in those countries.
It depends solely on tourist visits and so many.
Now, if we calculate, a country like Bahrain is an Arabic country that...
But they have oil, eh? We shouldn't forget that. They have oil.
That's what I'm saying, that they don't petroleum now. The petrol is for their citizens. Is it for you, stranger? Because Cameroonians don't go there to work as petroleum engineers. They go there as house helps, some go there as gate men, others go there as security guards. Those are the kind of minor jobs that they go there to do. But this unfortunate situation that occurred in Bahrain recently is actually a serious matter, because from the story I gathered was that the guy landed at the airport, they went there to pick him, and then later on he came back. They were supposed to sleep in a particular room, and then one person insisted that this person will not sleep in the room. And then late in the night, around 2 a.m., he woke up, took up a knife, and then pierced the other guy. Before they struggled about fighting within themselves, he pierced the other person, then he pierced himself and died. To me, I don't just want to look at it from the angle who killed who. I want to ask, what were the things that happened before the incident took place? Because if you look at it critically, something must be wrong somewhere. This guy must have thought that the heaven that they told him was going to see in Bahrain is not what actually he's seeing right now. Because most people who kill, they kill out of frustration. Now he went there thinking that he was supposed to get a comfortable place to sleep. The very first day he's reaching the place, he's not even hiding where to sleep. Space. He doesn't even have a bed space to sleep, which is very dangerous. Which means if I can be landing here, I don't have a bed space to sleep. How is my future here? That's the first thing. Secondly, the people who are also promoting this thing are the people who come with this idea of taking young men to go to that environment. We've had terrible stories of people who have traveled to Bahrain.
But these people who are still traveling, have they not heard the terrible stories?
That's what I'm talking. Because there was a time we spoke about children here in Jordan.
We've assisted so many of them. We've gone to the airports and received those.
Many of them were sent by the Cameroon government, even assisted in bringing back home. And then it's so surprising that they are still going to those places. And what could actually push a young man to kill his friends and then kill himself? That's the puzzle we are here to decipher.
This is a kind of mental illness? Or?
I don't want to say. Drugs could be the reason also, because when people take drugs and misbehave, it could be something spiritual also, as well as something psychiatric.
But the question I'm asking this evening, Dr. Why are these youths still traveling despite the education or what is being told them by the media regarding these Middle Eastern countries?
Thank you very much for asking me this question. That is the most important place where we should start. What pushes the youths to do that, to go on that trip? I mean, you are talking of youth going to Bahrain. Forget about the Bahrain. What would make a youth get up in the morning, get from Cameroon or from Nigeria or from Sudan to trek? I said trek through the Sahara Desert, then to go through Libya with all the problems that they have, then to go through the Mediterranean Sea to get to Italy or France or Spain. What is it that is pushing them? It's the same thing. It is that same thing that is getting...
No, let's put it, what is pulling them? We should not only talk about pushing. What is equally pulling them?
It is something is pushing them. So something is not pulling them. all right, the force that is pushing them, that it means the home is uncomfortable. Our homes, when I say home, I mean our countries, are uncomfortable. That's the problem. And therefore, when these young children are dying out there and are dying at the sea and so on, it's for us, the adults, to find out what is happening to our kids. You need to ask yourself the question, why is it that at 4 a.m. Cameroonian youths go and line up in front of the U.S. Embassy? You have to answer that question.
Some got dreams like Francis Ngannou.
No,
who tried 6 times to go to Europe.
Yes, I mean, those are some. There are some genuine dreams that are wrapped up in this chaotic thing. This chaotic thing is because there is something that we are not giving our youth in our country. All right. So if someone, let us rephrase the whole thing. Let us try to analyze the problems of this Republic of Cameroon on our fingers. If someone woke you from bed and said, what are the problems that are shaking the nation? What are the things that are harassing this nation? Well, you can mention the Anglophone problem as the problem number 1 and lay it aside. But the second most important problem is the youth unemployment, the youth problems, the lack of hope for our youth. And I'm telling the government, I'm telling everybody that if we are not careful with our youth, and we do something about it, this country will go up in flames. You know, the whole country will start burning. And we said there was 70% of the nation is youth, and when those youths, they rebel, there's nothing you're going to do. So we have to, this is the time we have to. What we are seeing happening in Bahrain is just that smoke which is telling you that there is a fire. And it looks grotesque because it happened in Bahrain. But let's forget about Bahrain. It's been happening here.
Yes.
Youths have been killing others in schools. The other day, a whole military man, so stupid a man, you shoot your wife with a gun, it was in Colbison, and you kill. I mean, and can lâcheté. You know, then there have been all this kind of killings here and so on, fighting each other and so on. There is a problem, or there are a set of problems that we are not addressing. And to be able to understand those problems very well, like you see, let me teach everybody a certain technique. If you really want to understand a problem and you go to the root problems, you know, like with the Anglophone problem, people kept saying go to the root problems. If you don't go to a root problem or a thing, you cannot solve it. So now we are seeing symptoms and signs. People are killing each other, be they in Bahrain, in Cameroon, wherever, in schools or something. There is something. There's an evil spirit of death and violence that is going on. Where is the death and violence coming from? What is propelling the death and violence? That is the thing. And while we might be condemning this young man who has killed some others in this thing, let us realize, Lasha, that you and I, we do exactly the same thing. Okay? When a young man, you promise a girl that you're going to marry her, use her and dump her, do you know that you killed her? You killed her. When you deceive people, you kill them. So this deceit, this spirit of deceit,
starts from top.
Yes, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, in our families, in our schools, in our churches, in the community, and so on. So it is the lack of truthfulness. If you go to look at the Anglophone problem, what is the source of the Anglophone problem? Is deceit. Is deceit, is lack of truth. So we have to come back to a place where we find out where all this rubbish is coming from. And then to really understand the problems again, just to go back to what is happening to these killings and so on, let us look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you remember that pyramid of needs, at the bottom here you have physiological needs, then you, in the second level, you have safety and security, you have love in the third level, ego in the fourth level. In the fifth level, you have self-actualization, and out of that triangle or pyramid, you have, they call it what's that? This thing where you go out of yourself. You know, it's called no. Yes, it's called like out of the box. The transcendental phase. Yes, the transcendental phase. So when you see all these people suffering at that minimum level, food and water, bed are lacking. Are you getting me? Security is lacking, those little things. So people are running around even just looking there for those basic things, and they will go to any extent to get it. And at that level, they are not even, they have no self-worth and so on. And people are going to kill because you gave them hope and you took it away. So it's very important that in a nation like us, we find out what is really going on and understand this and begin to do what it takes to solve the problems of youth. And we're not going to solve the problems of youth if we don't change our educational system, if we don't change our economics, if we don't provide industrialization and do many of these things so that children can put money in their pockets. I'm telling the government, I'm telling the parents, and I'm telling everybody.
In their minds, this mentality of getting into the public service, and most
Yes.
of them, when they write a concourse and they don't succeed,
It's
they tend to
because
travel out of the country.
it's because of the way our government has put it. You make believe that the civil service is the way. If you're
No, we see those guys moving in flashy cars.
That's right. That's what I'm trying to explain to you. So you have given people, in young Cameroonians, the impression that working in the private sector, you are a nobody. You have to work in the civil service. You have to have power. You have to have commandement. You know, even when you go to that civil service, it is commandement. If you're an SDO, you have to be a gendarme. I mean, I was reading somewhere on social media where there's some man with no limbs and
trying to start a motorbike.
No, not starting a motorbike. There's this young man. I don't want to say handicap because it's not good to say handicap. I mean, he's physically challenged and he's on a tricycle. And he had a problem. I think he makes cane chairs or something like that, and had problems with the customer. And the commander came and took him and locked him up, and they asked him for money. They brought the 360,000, and this man is so angry. And you can see that is corruption. And you get what I'm saying? Even the few people, the people with power, you're crushing those who don't have anything. And so we have created a system where we don't respect each other, we don't give each other their spaces, and we must give people their spaces. We have created a system where people have to join the civil service, go to be a gendarme, go to be a policeman, be a tax officer, go to a NAM or something, and then you are protected. Then you can gather money from others and feel rich, and then kill others. No, that system is useless. It doesn't work. We have to empower the private sector. It is the private sector that will provide jobs for people. Don't give people the impression that you must have a matriculation number, and then cut people down to size. Cut people down to size. These extreme powers that people are using to crush others is not right. Cut people down to size. Help the people, you know, to create themselves opportunities in the private sector. Put monies in their pockets from the private sector, and it's easily done. It's just because we are not putting out our thinking caps. We keep running to France. France is not the solution. The solution is that we have to put up our thinking caps and think and solve the problems of youth. I mean, this thing is just starting, and we had better correct it now. Otherwise, we'll be in a real mess.
Okay, Doctor, before you forget, you were talking about the educational system. You said you wanted to say something in that light.
Yes.
Quickly, before I get to...
The educational system that these French people and English people gave to Africans, they gave you a kind of education which does not allow you to make use of your resources, which just allows you to be able to communicate. That's the basic thing. That's why you had those PhD people with PhDs in their pocket, unable to create anything, that was screaming in the Ministry of Higher Education. And the minister was so generous enough to give them more jobs to continue to train people who cannot think. So you see, it's a vicious cycle. You know, when there is a concours to recruit, let's say 1,000 people in ENAM, 27,000 people or 30,000 people register to compete, and therefore at the end of the day they take 1,000, and yet I want to tell you that the 1,000 that they take are not the best. They have to pay for the places. Sometimes they pay 7 million, 10 million, and so on. And when they come out, they want to get that money 100 times over. So we are saying that we have a problem with our educational system. We need to change the educational system and go and ask the South Koreans how they do it, ask the Singaporeans how they do it, ask the people of Malaysia how they do it. Do exactly what the Chinese president did, the Mao Zedong, or I hope his name is right. 40 years ago, he went to their universities and converted 70% of their universities into technological universities. Those are the kind of things that we need to do. This kind of bullshit that we have here as universities is going to kill us.
But Dr. Nick, what takes outside may not necessarily be the same in Cameroon. Probably our own ground terrain is different.
I know you're provoking me to come out with some truth. You know, life works but on principles. Life works on principles. How do you cook fufu corn? The way you cook fufu corn, what you call fufu corn in Bamenda, is the same way you cook it in I don't know where, as long as you are cooking fufu corn. Even if you are cooking in China, it's the same thing. You cannot if you take the flour and put it in the cold water and turn it like garlic, you don't get fufu corn. So if you are going to bake bread or bake a cake, You have to bake it the right way. I remember one white man who visited a family, and the wife baked a cake, and then he gave this white man to eat. You know, like a white man comes, you think giving him cakes is the best thing. When he's interested in eating fufu, and this woman bakes a cake and gives the white man, the man, is it an? I said, one man asks, what is this? The woman says it's a cake. The man asks, is it an African cake? Why? Because the woman did not follow the principles of baking a cake. Principles are principles. Principles are principles here. They probably will change on the moon because of gravity, otherwise principles remain principles. And when we say change our educational system, I'm saying change the principles that we are studying and apply them, and we'll grow.
Okay, change the principle and apply them, and we'll go. Let me come back to you, sir. In your own opinion, what is really pushing these young people to go out there? Is it for the greener pasture, or something is pushing them? Is it a pull factor or push factor that is making these young people to go out?
Tout commence par un malaise à l'intérieur de l'environnement dans lequel on évolue. Je pense que de tout temps, l'homme, les êtres humains ont toujours cherché, lorsque les conditions de vie dans l'environnement dans lequel ils vivaient n'étaient pas favorables, ne leur étaient pas favorables, ils ont toujours cherché à aller ailleurs. Je pense que c'est un besoin naturel qui n'est, n'est-ce pas, de l'inconfort. Lorsque la situation n'est pas confortable là où on est, on cherche naturellement à s'expatrier, à émigrer, à aller ailleurs, là où la vie semble beaucoup plus, du moins dans l'imaginaire, là où la vie semble beaucoup plus belle. Surtout que nous sommes aujourd'hui nous vivons une période marquée par la mondialisation, avec les réseaux sociaux, avec la télévision, Internet et tout ça. Donc, qui renvoie dans l'imaginaire de la jeunesse certains clichés, certaines images, bref. Donc, les jeunes Camerounais, lorsqu'un jeune Camerounais quitte son pays pour aller ailleurs, il faut questionner d'abord les conditions dans lesquelles il vit. Maintenant, si on observe, aujourd'hui, le chômage, voyons le chômage chez les jeunes au Cameroun. Voyons, comme le docteur Nick disait, presque au Cameroun, on a l'impression que la vie passe par la fonction publique. Il faut à tout prix être passé.
Mais quand on crée dans le secteur privé, le gouvernement vient tuer avec le taxe.
Justement, la politique du régime qui nous gouverne n'est pas celle de favoriser le secteur privé. Voyez tout ce qui se passe avec le GICAM.
Gouvernement tue avec le taxe.
Voyez tout ce qui se passe avec le GICAM et tous les autres acteurs du secteur privé, que ce soit GICAM ou tous les autres entrepreneurs privés. Aujourd'hui, c'est le cadre fiscal qui n'est pas incitatif. Hein. Les impôts qui sont trop lourds à supporter, même au niveau, vous créez votre entreprise là, on va vous asphyxier avec l'impôt, et si vous ne savez pas composer avec, c'est pas moi, le gouvernement et tout, vous êtes obligé de frauder, de ne pas payer l'impôt, de trouver des voies, des moyens pour ne pas. Mais prenons la jeunesse, puisqu'on parle de la jeunesse, cette jeunesse là qui n'a déjà même pas les éléments, les moyens pour pouvoir entreprendre. Lorsque vous voyez qu'au niveau de la promotion sociale, l'échelle sociale est bloquée, vous ne pouvez pas accéder à un emploi décent, vous ne pouvez pas entreprendre, vous ne pouvez pas, vous ne pouvez pas bénéficier des besoins élémentaires que la société est censée vous apporter en tant que jeune. Qu'est-ce que vous faites? Vous regardez ailleurs. Maintenant, donc, c'est un paradigme qu'il faut changer, mais ça dépend de la volonté de l'État. Au PCRN, nous savons que nous sommes convaincus que ce régime a échoué. Et il est temps de trouver une alternative autre. L'emploi jeune et les questions liées à la situation des jeunes au Cameroun, c'est assez préoccupant pour qu'on puisse encore continuer à analyser, à débattre là-dessus.
Apostle Ambe, he says that the regime in place has failed. It's time for a change of regime in the country. Do you think this will stop the youths from traveling out of the country?
If we change 20 presidents without transforming the minds of the people in question, nothing will change.
How do you transform the minds?
Good. That's the question you should be asking right now. The truth is, we painted a picture of civil service to our youth instead of painting a picture of people developing their potentials. Until our approach to life changes, even if we change presidents, things will not change. In countries that have seen rapid development, they have taught the youth on how to depend on their potentials, while countries that teach their youth to depend on salary will never grow. A simple case is the case of Japan. I cited it once.
Okay.
Japan has never been colonized. Let me put it this way. Because we are complaining that it's colonialism that is killing us, colonialism that is killing us, colonialism has played its role and gone. We have to wake up from slumber. Japan had a very serious damage from the Hiroshima and Nagasaki crisis of 1945. It was so bad until you could not even plant crops in Japan and they would grow because the bomb devastated the entire land. Children were being born, some came out with no ears, some came out with no eyes, some came out with no arms. But Japan took the few persons they have, transported out of the country to Europe and America. They went there and studied the technology of that place, came back, improvised on that same technology to the extent whereby Japan has become a force to reckon with in the world.
I mean, Chinese are going to Japan.
They are going there to study technology. Why? Japan was not like that. It's because they went out. Japan made the population to see the ability in people. Two things that take people out of the country. When you hear that you are teaching English in China, they are paying you 600,000, and you are teaching 7 subjects in primary school here, they are paying you 130,000. You will take that teaching and prefer to go and teach in China. That's the problem. The salary condition of our country is one of the reasons why most of our young men do not find it comfortable to stay here anymore. In Cote d'Ivoire, they pay a primary school teacher 320,000. A secondary school teacher 510,000. In Cameroon, they pay primary school teacher 135,000. A secondary school teacher 280,000. So why will Cameroonians not shift from Douala to Abidjan to go and teach there? Because the salary is different. That is because we initially trained the people to count on salary. A man who is financially independent, like some of us, who went to school but refused to ever look for matricle number, we are not going to be carried to run to another nation in the world because we are looking for salary. We have learned to look within us and bring out the potential, which is what is paying us now independently.
Now you are a farmer, you have a very large
Of course,
plantation in
yes.
the central region.
Of course. Why? That is because I came to understand that the thing that is inside you is greater than any salary. As a matter of fact, salary is a weapon of modern day slavery. They use it to shield your faculties from thinking beyond the salary. Meanwhile, you're worth more than that salary. If we don't start bringing up entrepreneurial trainings, that's the reason I like what some of the young men are doing now. They are carrying out a lot of training on entrepreneurship to bring an awareness that you getting out from school, if you are not employed, is not a disadvantage. Go to Korea. People like Daewoo, Samsung, Hyundai are all young men who grew up like that in their universities. But because the way they trained them, they started looking from within. The man that has Econet is called Strive Masiyiwa. He's a Zimbabwean. He grew in a church, and the pastor began teaching them the ability not to count on salary, but to look into them. That's how Strive came out with Econet across the nations of the world. He's a multi-billionaire, and he organizes conferences across the nations. They allow, even if our curriculums are colonial, we can still create conferences out of that curriculum. All these organizations like young men like Golam Jisong, Janu Jobe, who are teaching on entrepreneurship, those are resourceful areas to go and draw inspiration from. If we are blaming the curriculum, did they tie us to multiply the curriculum? Have you seen any European power come here to stop entrepreneurial conferences? They have not. I organize entrepreneurial conferences. We teach business people. They come there, we teach them what is out of the curriculum. Now, if we say school betrayed us, is the school the only source of learning in this country? Those of us who have learned the sense not to depend on that
but
curriculum.
the billionaires that we have in Cameroon, most of them didn't go to school now.
That's what I'm letting you understand. I taught that in church once. I said the people like the Fossa Victors and the rest, they didn't go to school. As a matter of fact, if you go to the English where you will hear Dr. This, they are good in speaking articulated grammar, but they have no evidence on the ground. While you go and see the men who have not gone to school, they don't speak any grammar, they have proofs on grammar. I'm asking that if they say our curriculum is bad, now has the Europeans tied us from organizing teachings out of that curriculum, maybe in conferences, seminars, symposiums, that can enlighten our children?
But probably they might have tied our leaders down.
Who tied? If they tied our leaders, then why are we still organizing the conferences?
Okay, Dr. Nick, you may want to agree with me that some of these youths who are blaming the government, they spend their time in drinking sports and gambling houses, moving up and down with women. Like, let me take the case of a young man who escaped with over 32 million francs CFA money meant for his patron, and they went and they were enjoying themselves at a hotel in Mali or
Nigeria, somewhere there.
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of these things contribute to the youths not trying to bring out the potentials in them.
That's right. It boils down to training people and giving them the right education. The most important thing is not having money. You would have noticed that people who win the national lottery, they don't have anything to show after a while, because they have not trained themselves to be able to use that money. And I would like to say that money is like groundnut. You need to know how to sow the money so that it grows and gives you more groundnuts. But if you start eating your groundnut seeds, you're not going to get very far. And money is sweet, you know, and when you keep thinking that it will keep coming, especially if you are stealing it, sooner or later it will get finished. We have a lot of rich civil servants who just steal the money. They might call themselves rich, but that's not riches. You are rich when you actually generate it yourself, and you have the skills to generate it, you know. You are rich when everything else that you have can be burned away by fire, but through your capacity you regenerate it. So it is that capacity that is lacking, and it's that capacity that we need to grow in our children. And it is again the way we have brought them up, expecting something for free. That mindset of expecting something for free is killing our youth, and we start poisoning them from primary school, from nursery school. For instance, let us go to a small example of handwork in schools. When I remember my children going to St. John Primary School on Foncha Street in Bamenda, and you know, they will be asked for handwork, you know, at the end of the term or something like that. And instead of bringing a broom or a bamboo chair that they made themselves, they will bring 100 francs. And then the 100 francs will be taken as handwork. That is corrupting the minds of young people. That's very high level. It doesn't look like, I'm saying it now to warn the whole nation and all those schools and so on. It's better you drop that element of handwork from school, or some kind of an activity in school. If you're going to take money in lieu of that activity, you are not helping the kids, you are killing them, you are poisoning them. And therefore we've grown to just try to give monetary value to everything. It's not everything that money can buy for you. You must grow your character. Your father might be very rich, like a Fotso, but when he sends you to school, the teachers must teach you, and you must also do your own part to learn what it takes to get what you have to get. But if you refuse to get trained, there's no way your father is going to buy knowledge, open your skull and pour and fill in like a petrol tank. It doesn't work like that. And what we have to realize that it is lack of discipline. Lack of discipline. May his soul rest in peace.
Most of these youths that are going to gambling houses and drinking sports are graduates.
Yeah, your graduates mean nothing. Graduates mean, forget about that thing called graduate. It's not even frustration. Let me go. May his soul rest in peace, like the Muslims usually say. Let me go again back to something that His Eminent Christian Cardinal taught me about more than 10 years ago. What does it take to succeed? To succeed, you know, I think he taught I and my students 6 things that everybody needs to succeed. Number 1, you must like work. And when I'm reciting this thing,
Yes.
think of all those your students that you are talking about and find out whether they align to these principles. It doesn't matter whether you have a certificate where you're the child of Paul Biya or who, you must align to those principles, otherwise there's no success for you. Number one, you must like work. Number two, you must like work that is well done. I said well done. That well done is excellence. Number three, you must have self-discipline. And you will see that what is lacking in most of our youth is self-discipline. Number four, you must have intellectual honesty. You see, like most of these are ministers who stole COVID money. They lack intellectual honesty. So it's not because you are made a minister or a general. If you lack honesty, you will do whatever and you hurt the people. You need intellectual honesty. You need to be honest. Honesty, another word for honesty is truthfulness, that you are trustworthy. Number five, you must pray. To pray means that you must be in connection with a higher power, which is the spiritual power, and we're talking here of the power of God, who gives you inspiration. That inspiration, it comes from God. That creative power, it comes from God. If you don't hook up with him, you will not be very creative. Number six, you must respect the environment. The environment is Mother Earth. If you check youths, find out, and even our adults that seem to have succeeded, see the ones that actually do very well and succeed very well and multiply and grow, keep to some of these principles. If you don't keep, I told you life is about principles. If you don't keep to these principles, you are a liar and you are going nowhere. And many of our youths are not aware of these principles.
Okay, many of our youths are not aware of this principle. Let's take some few messages before we continue with the program. This one says she's Daisy from Kumba. Good evening, our host of Prime Hour for today, and to Dr. Nick and Apostle Ambe Valentine and everyone in the studio. Lack of employment, comparison, laziness, and lack of focus is causing many youths to travel abroad. Many believe that they will make quick money when they travel abroad, especially with that some bush fallers make them to believe. Some bush faller makes them to believe that traveling abroad you will get quick money. And this other one says, good evening, I am Tebot from Douala. You people are always saying entrepreneur, but you fail to understand that you have to raise money to do that, to solve that question. The question I'm asking now is it how you will raise that money when you have nothing doing? Dr. Nick.
Yeah, let Apostle answer.
An entrepreneur is not him that has money, it's him that has ideas. A wealthy man is not him that has CFA. CFA is legal tender. Money is not legal tender. The word money is creativity. Legal tender is what you call CFA. So if you are waiting some 200,000, you command, that's not money. Secondly, banks don't give money to people who have projects. Bank give money to people who have convincing projects. As a matter of fact, if your project is convincing, you will not even give collateral security. So money is in ideas. You have a challenge with positive and productive ideas. That's why you are poor. You don't need money anymore. I was teaching a business seminar. I said how to begin a business without capital. And nobody will say, what kind of topic is that? How to begin a business without feasible capital. The capital is in the idea. I saw a man that wrote a project and went to a bank and submitted it. The bank was begging him to be the one to sponsor it. He was now beginning to dangle between two banks to see which one will sponsor, because why? The idea was feasible. I have projects I put on ground. I brought a business consultant. When he saw, he said, when do you think we can start this thing? I told him that I'm not in a haste. Because why? Your wealth is in your idea. A thinker today, really very well, is a billionaire tomorrow. If you give 200 million to an empty-headed man, he will come back home with bare foot. If you give 10,000 to a loaded-minded person, he will come back with an enterprise. So money is not the reason for prosperity. Ideas are. If you have creative and potential ideas that can generate the necessary income, everybody will be in a haste to sponsor it. There are persons who have money and have no ideas, and there are others who have ideas and have no money. When opportunity meets preparation, miracle is inevitable.
Okay, this other one says, good evening to you all in the studio. I think Africa economy can be revived if and only if we stand firm to quest for re-independence in all aspects, including economic independence. Biak should cease from being remote control from France. Greetings to the guy of Baligam, Derin Walang in Chang. Deli Warang is writing from Chang, and another message still from Derek Walang in Chang. He says the educational system in Cameroon is old and needs revision in order to train independent youths who can be employers and not job seekers. Those are the messages Eric sent to us this evening. Let's take this other message. Still coming from Derek. He sent us 3 messages. We continue. This other one says, good evening to our host for today. The message is repeating itself. The person sent twice. Good evening to everyone. They're out there in the studio. I am Mr. Ajong from Boya. The main problem faced by our youths in this country is bad governance, embezzlement of state funds, etc. The few old parents at power has held Cameroonians hostage. Once Anglophone problems are solved, it will go a long way to reduce these dangerous, desperate immigration problems that youths are facing. Dr. Ni, you want to react?
Yeah, I want to cancel what he has said. Is not true. What he has said is not true, because you see, if you want your child to actually be disciplined, put the load directly on the child so the child can bring out his own contribution. When you keep deviating it and sending it, to someone else, you're not helping the child at all. Just a moment ago, you were talking of someone who stole 33 billion. He could have stolen the 33 billion and invested in something if he had the ideas. When you steal 33 billion and you run away with a girl into a hotel in Nigeria, that's not it. In fact, the problem is with our kids. If you have children at home who prefer to be watching television, who cannot even brush your shoes for you, who cannot wash your shirt for you, who cannot do anything, and you're not giving them the right training. Let us start training our children right and giving them the right things. Then ask the government to top up with their good governance. I'm not saying that bad governance is hurting us a lot. The bad education is hurting us a lot. But let's also remember that the product that we call our children, whatever they come out tomorrow, is multifactorial. Many things are coming at them. And do your own part. Let the child do their own part. Let the government fill in their own part. But as long as you have not done your own part as a community or the environment, as long as the child is not doing their own part and you keep blaming the government, we call that a blame game, and it's not helping you.
Okay, Eugene is writing from Bamenda. He says, congratulations to Apostle Ambe Valentine. I would like to have his contact after the program. We'll get back to you from Eugene. This other one says, good evening, great minds. I appreciate the good work you guys are doing. Just to add to what Dr. Nick said about corruption, Mr. Lasha, yesterday in some centers where children were writing the common entrance examination, teachers who were called to invigilate were to be paid 3,000 francs. Can you imagine that after invigilation, the chief of center told them that the government asked him to collect a tax of 200 francs per invigilator, and they were finally paid 2,800 francs. A fat lie. That's Stanley from Douala. Stanley is writing from Douala. You want to comment on that?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, talking about common entrance, concours d'entrée and sixième. Normally, those who invigilate, they're supposed to be paid 3,000.
Okay, I heard about this story about it's a testimony of the great corruption in our country.
But if there is really a legislation in force that has to do with tax. I quite remember during the Mount Cameroon Race of Hope, those who got their prize, some taxes had to be deducted.
Bien sûr,
this would still be another one.
Mais vous savez, on a toujours pris on est déjà habitué à cette façon de fonctionner au Cameroun où les lois n'ont d'importance que pour ceux qui y croient. C'est-à-dire que il y a des des règles qui sont établies. On sait que pour déposer un dossier ici, c'est 15 000, là c'est 10 000, là. Mais vous voyez, il y a des chefs d'établissement qui continuent toujours de faire dans le vol, on va dire ça comme ça. Et puis c'est pas bien pour nous. Ce sont des choses que nous décrions toujours dans ce pays. Je crois que l'État regarde tout cela. L'État regarde tout cela et continue toujours de laisser faire. C'est toujours cette impunité-là. Lorsqu'on gouverne, on administre un État, on laisse l'impunité. Hein, on laisse l'impunité prospérer.
Is the state actually leaving impunity to reign?
Of course. Lorsqu'un chef d'établissement se comporte de cette manière, qu'est-ce que vous attendez? Et ce sont des pratiques qu'on décrit tous les jours. Tous les jours. Ce sont des pratiques qu'on décrit tous les jours.
Okay, and according to you, this is also contributing to poisoning the minds of the young Cameroonians who are
oui, mais pour revenir à la jeunesse, si vous permettez que je dise un mot là-dessus, je pense que il faudrait, en faisant le procès de la jeunesse, il faudrait toujours tenir compte du contexte dans lequel cette jeunesse vit. Je pense que en tant que jeune, et en tant que jeune qui réfléchit sur le sens et la direction dans laquelle sa société se dirige, il faut aussi analyser les choses selon leur contexte. Je ne suis pas le défenseur des jeunes qui sont dans les salles de poker, les bars, les boîtes de nuit et autres, mais il faut aussi voir que
at the same time, it is law. The parliament passed the law for these gambling houses. So,
oui, bien sûr. Et puis, bien sûr. Et puis, il n'y a pas que les jeunes qui y entrent. Ce sont des lieux, ce sont des gens qui payent un certain impôt. Ce sont des entrepreneurs, on va dire ça comme ça. Hein. Il y en a même des jeunes qui sont propriétaires de ce genre de business. Et vous voyez, on a beau le discours du développement personnel c'est important, mais je crois que le développement personnel est lui d'un certain nombre de faits. Il y a des choses qu'on ne voit pas. On ne voit pas que, par exemple, un certain Samuel Eto'o qui s'est entraîné, qui a commencé, qui est devenu footballeur, le plus grand footballeur africain. On sait combien de personnes ont commencé comme Samuel Eto'o et combien ont fini comme lui. Et ils sont combien de Samuel Eto'o dans le monde? On peut prendre le même exemple pour les entrepreneurs, les grands entrepreneurs, par exemple, non? Tous ces
but the issue is that most of these youths that we are blaming them for not working hard. Let me take the case of Francis Ngannou. We've seen he believed in himself, what he wanted to become in the future, but there was nobody to give him a helping hand. Now that he's become something, he's shining, everybody wants to associate with him.
S'il y avait un État qui est regardant au niveau du bien-être de sa population, on aurait 150 Francis Ngannou. Mais on n'en a qu'un seul. Et bien sûr, on peut le mettre sur le compte. On peut mettre Francis Ngannou est ce qu'il est aujourd'hui grâce à ses propres efforts. Grâce à ses propres efforts. Mais tout le monde, on ne peut pas attendre quand vous avez 5 enfants et vous avez 4 qui réussissent, un qui commence à perdre la tête. Mais vous pouvez perdre la tête à cause de lui. Pour un seul enfant, alors que vous en avez 4.
Ok.
Donc, mais il faut voir aussi que le contexte doit aussi être pris en compte lorsqu'on analyse les questions jeunes. Les trajectoires ne sont pas les mêmes, les schèmes de pensée ne sont pas les mêmes. Il faudrait plutôt trouver des voies et moyens pour pouvoir encadrer dès le départ, parce que lorsque un enfant a été bien encadré dès le départ, que ce soit au niveau scolaire, que ce soit dans sa progression à l'université, et même lorsqu'il commence à se lancer, voyons, est-ce qu'il fait dans les activités associatives, est-ce qu'il fait ceci, est-ce qu'il fait cela. Lorsque tout ça est encadré, le jeune s'épanouit dans sa société. Prenons par exemple le cas de l'entrepreneuriat. Beaucoup de jeunes se lancent dans l'entrepreneuriat aujourd'hui.
Okay.
Mais ça ne pèse pas, ça donne pas toujours parce que il y a justement, il y a pas
this question is addressed to you, and the person before addressing the question, he's congratulating Apostle Ambe Valentine. He says he wants his number, and then the question, he has addressed the question to you, asking how can he become creative? How do I become creative? That's a question coming from a Cameroonian who is watching us. He didn't mention his name.
Thank you. I think that's a great question. You asked a good question. How can you become creative? It's very, very important. It's a great question. How do I put it? Creativity is that thing that comes from your sixth sense, so to speak. So how do you develop your creative skills? Number one, is very, very important that you read a lot, you study a lot, you watch nature, and learn how things work. Don't just take things for granted. If you're passing and you see like this, things are just coming to my mind. You see like this truck that mixes concrete.
Yes.
Don't just look at it as a truck. Oh, when it's passing, look at it again. What's happening exactly? There is a truck, just like any other truck, and then there is a basin on it that is mixing concrete. And then, if you have studied physics, go beyond and see the blades that are inside there. Then you go, how is it mixed? How do you put the concrete? How is it delivered, and so on? Always look at things and study the processes. We are very superficial. You will only start being creative when you learn processes, how things work. Don't just take things for granted. Your mama grown jama and is doing very well. You realize that she put wood ash on it, and then the product became even better. You realize that you put cow dung and it became better. Ask the questions why. So you need to develop a mind which asks three basic questions. What is it? Why is it the way it is? How can I do it? When you begin to ask these questions, your level of creativity would improve. What I'm saying is, be curious. Curiosity means you look at things and you take them apart and you put them together again. Once you learn this technique, your mind will begin to function, and before you know it, you become very creative. And what is being creative? You probably will not come out with something great that has never existed. That's not the issue. When you become very creative, your mind begins to tweak things around. You will say that Mr. Lasha, in building his house, this is what he did. And then through your creativity, you say, I will build a house and I'm going to turn it to face the sun in that direction. I want more light to come into the house. But you tweak what Lasha did and then bring in something new, and you have a new product. So creativity is something that is born out of a curious mind, a mind that learns, a mind that doesn't take things for granted.
How can you be creative in a polluted environment?
There's nothing like a polluted environment. A polluted environment gives you an opportunity to become even more creative. In fact, you can be more creative in Africa than in America.
Okay, you can be more creative in Africa than in America. Busurambe, let me take some few messages before I come back to you. Good evening to all of you in the studio. Powerful minds in the studio. I am Claude Atangana, writing from Yaoundé. I think our key limitations ranges from poor home upbringing by parents and poorly tailored educational system. Children are not trained by parents to be purpose-driven. They grew up without a passion to fulfill their dreams, but to make a living by any means. And secondly, our educational system teaches us to be job seekers than job creators, thus enabling young people to remain dependent on the government. And finally, he says, the government policies on restriction on new companies have discouraged many youths who with great ideas to dare a startup company in the country. For example, like myself, that's what he's saying. The person at Tangana is saying from Yaoundé that
yes.
These are some of the reasons government acting like barriers for people to set up companies.
That's true. I spoke about bad government policies put in place that hinders people's creativity, because as a matter of fact, creativity is knowing the next use of what is already used. That's creativity. Knowing a new use of something they're already using. For instance, we harvest plantains and we eat it. That's already the use we have. Somebody comes and then produce flour out of that plantain. That's the next use of what we're already using. So every raw material you need is already available. Then when you come to create another use for what has already been used, that's what we call creativity. It's as simple as ABC. Somebody made me and said they have found 300 other products out of cassava. To us, cassava is gari, cassava is otafufu, cassava is bobolo, cassava is moyondo. But somebody says bringing out ethanol from cassava. Somebody says bringing out baking flour from cassava. That's bringing out a new use of what has already been used. Now, government policies hinder the progression of young men in many ways. Number one, you find it difficult to establish an enterprise in Cameroon at a very high range. Before you will pass from one office to another, they will suffocate the little capital you have in your hand to create that company. Because
but Dr. Nick often talk of cutting your coat according to your size. Now you can have a company producing 1,000 pieces of slippers in a day. You set up your company that will produce maybe 10.
That is what we're talking about. The policies put in place is what even hinders the operation of these companies. Taxes. We live in Cameroon. The value added tax is 19.25.
Which is even lower than what we have in other countries. In Germany, it's over 40% now.
That is a difference in the currency and the standard of living there. Those are two different things. Nigeria here, the tax is 5%. Why do we always go and think of things that are even higher than us? If Nigeria, a country close to here, their TVA is 5%, it means every time a Nigerian makes 100,000, he pays 5,000. A Cameroonian makes 100,000, he pays 20,000. And then talk less of the fact that the Naira is even higher than the Cfa. So let's be very sincere and contextualize what we are talking within the context of our society. That's the truth. Number two, most government give stimulus to small and medium-sized enterprises.
But Cameroon are the line of a tax holiday of 1 year now. When you are starting up a
they
company,
give you exoneration of your tax. I have a company, Elgibo International Business Venture. It was 2 years at first.
Yes.
When you open, they register the commerce, which is the license to operate. They will give you a tax exoneration of 2 years. It has been reduced to 1 year. And every month you have to go and declare nyang if at all you didn't work any work. But sometimes you will open that company for sometimes 2, 3, 4 months. You work nothing. If you don't go and declare that nyang, they will put it that you are going to pay a particular amount of money. So sometimes you don't even have an accountant, somebody who runs your affairs in the office. You don't even have to go and declare it. They give you taxes on company that you have not worked anything. So the young man is left to close it down.
So which means that you didn't cut their coat according to your size.
Not cutting close, a policy in place. In Canada, I'm talking to somebody who has done research now, Alasha. In Canada, if you open a company, you have to raise the company to a certain capital before the government start developing interest in the tax. Not here, you have not won one contract that give you tax, you have to come and declare young. How many staff do you have in a fledgling company to have the person that will go be declaring tax every month? It is your turnover that has to provoke tax towards your direction, not the one that you are still struggling and limping like a chick that just came out of an egg and they are giving you taxes. That's what I'm talking about. Now, if Canada, an advanced country, can allow you, for instance, if you start opening a company in Canada, you may have at least $500,000 before government now can check your operation and say, okay, we have seen what you have on ground. It means your company has come of age to start paying tax. Not when you go and borrow money to even rent an office. And because you did not go to the tax to go and declare nyang, which you don't even have the stars to run that job.
Okay. I would like to come in because we are talking to the whole nation now to say a couple of things, to differ with the apostle a little bit. Now, you remember I told the cardinal told me that you want to succeed. I gave you those principles. Discipline. Discipline is very important. If the government says, for 1 year you are not going to pay tax, whether you have been working or not, but even if you are getting no penny, go to my office and fill those papers and declare the nyang that you have nothing. Do it. It's discipline. If you don't have that discipline, you are going to run in problems. It is discipline. And you know, I think we should say that government should look at ways and means again of making it easier for youths. But I also was reading that government gave money even to help many youths, PRC, or they call it Padre U also. But many youths because of lack of discipline, lack of vision and carelessness, they would just craft something, and their uncles are in those offices, they take the money and disappear and go and drink with girls and boys, and then it becomes a problem. It's true that government might have its problems, but it's also true that we as adults, we as youth and so on, we are very abusive, and we don't make the best use of the opportunities that we have. And I would like to say that we have to be disciplined, and we have to have our visions very clear, and we have to be very committed to what we are doing. We are not saying that it is easy, but let us try to do our best. If you do your best and then things catch up with you on the way, no problem. You will always, somehow, if you fall, rise again. And to say that even in the best environments, 80% of new startups always die. They always die because there was some lack of managerial capacity, lack of something or lack of something. So, but the principle is still the same. If you fail, learn your lessons and know why you fail. Get up again and try again, and one day you're going to succeed big. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. That is the solution.
Okay, keep trying, that's the solution. Let's take some few messages before we conclude the program. This one says, good evening to you in the studio. I buy the idea of Dr. Nick of the 6 principles of success. I am learning a lot. I'm Livingston in Bamenda. Please keep up educating the public. It is said fools dies many times before their actual death. That's Livingston writing from Bamenda. This other one says, greetings to you all in the studio. There is what it says there is what we call Wheeler's model of curriculum. That's modification. Let the government of Cameroon practice this in our educational system. All will be fine for the country. Tasha Raymond from Manfe, the reflection man from GBHS Ndop. Tasha Raymond is writing from Manfe. Greetings to you, Tasha Raymond. Good to know that you are watching us from Manfe in the southwest region of Cameroon. This other message, before we get your conclusive words, the message is missing. Hello, good evening. I am Lucas from Yaoundé. Please, I need Dr. Ambe's number. That man is great. I think he will help me out. We'll give you the contact at the end of the program. Apostle Ambe, Valentine, we are gradually coming to the end of the program. I would like to get your conclusive words on the Franc-Afrique summit and this incident of that happened in Bahrain. What should we do to ensure that our youth stay back home? They should not travel and find themselves in the kind of precarious situation most of them are into right now.
Yes, I didn't want to make this program a debate for me and Dr. Nick.
But just make your point. Make your point before.
I'll just make my point.
Yeah, okay.
The France-Afrique Summit is an old-age, long tradition that has been repeated over and over. Russia copied it recently. They organized the Sochi Russia African Summit. China has China African Summit. Brazil also was coming with Brazil African Summit. We have had a lot of these summits and they have not helped us.
They want to are you saying that they are eyeing our resources?
Of course. Of course. Europeans will never give you a goat without holding the rope behind. So I'm tired with all those.
If they hold the root, why can't we cut the root? So that
when that's the parable you have to understand. They give you the goat and holding it behind. The truth is, let us forget about all these people. They call us for their interests because they practically depend on Africa. Why is it not American Euro Summit? Why is there no China Asia Europe Asia Summit? Why is there no South America Summit with America or Europe? It's to tell you that everybody knows where the juice is. They will call you, except us. Except us. They will call you thinking that they have your interest at heart, not knowing that everything they want to strike there to benefit them. Why is everybody focusing towards
Why
Africa?
are we not learning? Why are we not learning?
Why are we not learning is beyond human explanation.
Okay.
Yes, it's beyond
human explanation. Thank you so much.
Yes, and then to conclude with our children who are going to other countries like Bahrain, and the truth is, when I heard that Cameroonians were traveling to China, I was shocked. I'm telling you, I'm very sincere. China has a population of 1.5 billion people they have not taken care of.
You even have some Chinese frying pop-off.
I say China has a population of 1.5 billion. You are going there to go and act. They have not finished employing their people. That as I'm in my house, I have not finished feeding my children, and then you come and act. You would have hunger.
Okay,
because I will prepare my children before.
Thank you very much, Apostle and Valentine, for coming. It was a pleasure having you on set this evening.
Yes,
Dr. Nick Bayan, let's have your last words. We're gradually moving out of the...
Yes, we are begging Macron that that the French should give us some breathing space. It's very important. Give us some breathing space. Please, when it comes to that monetary thing, give us some breathing space. When it comes to our education, give us some breathing space. Otherwise, we'll continue to come to Europe and overcrowd your streets and your country and cause crimes there. So help us to develop, and we'll leave you alone. Please help us to stay in our own nation by leaving us alone. It's very important. Give us some space. Take your knee off our necks. You know, if you don't do that, then it will always be a problem. I'm glad that you are realizing it, and then you are now beginning to say that we should see how we can cooperate in a win-win manner. And for that to happen, we need to have some financial autonomy. Our education has to be proper, and we need to grow our skills to be able to compete effectively. Okay. And then to say that, just to remember, the cardinal told me to succeed, you must like work. You must like work that is well done. You must have intellectual honesty. You must have self-discipline. You must pray, and you must respect the environment.
Pascal, merci d'être là. It was a pleasure having you.
Merci avec cette thématique très intéressante et des co-panélistes très inspirants aussi. Je leur en remercie. Et c'est le lieu pour moi d'appeler la jeunesse justement de notre pays, mes chers concitoyens jeunes, de pouvoir enfin comprendre que l'État ne peut pas tout faire. Enfin, l'État ne peut pas tout faire, et les conditions pour pouvoir émerger, s'épanouir économiquement, financièrement, socialement, ne sont pas toutes réunies, surtout avec le système qui nous gouverne. Il faudrait s'intéresser à la gestion de notre pays. Il faut que la jeunesse devienne le premier acteur du développement de son pays. Nous sommes un pays à presque 60% jeunes. Il est inadmissible que la jeunesse soit absente du processus de décision dans son propre pays. Ce n'est pas en s'expatriant qu'on trouve le bonheur, mais c'est plutôt en trouvant dans son propre pays, avec tous les problèmes qui s'y trouvent, les solutions qui vont permettre d'émerger.
Okay, thank you so much for coming. It's on that note that we end today's edition of Prime R. Of course, I was Lasha Kingsley sitting in for Kum Leonard, who've been called off for other duties. We want to sincerely thank our production team led by Ewane Eli Nolinga and Bertrand, who is at the broadcast. We equally thank Mr. Kaiser Mike and the Chief Executive Officer of this television channel, Tambi Brian. Stay blessed and do have a great night. Bye-bye.